Is hand-to-hand dog water, or is it actually secretly really good in master mode for Oblivion Remastered? Well, let's find out. So the first thing we have to do is we have to get to 100 strength, which we are at, and then you also want to get to 100 hand-to-hand to get maximum damage. Now, back in the day, the game used to display your damage somewhere in one of the screens, but you could actually check your hand-to-hand damage. Luckily, there's a mod that lets me see damage now. So this is doing 11.5 damage per hit. You can see the damage is very low. I have another mod that changes the UI, so the health bar goes left to right. So you can see that the damage is very low. Now, what is the only way we can really ramp the damage? Can we use like magic to improve it? Can we enchant our fists or do anything like that? We cannot at all. So the only thing we can actually do to improve the damage is use better weapons. So I'm able to get the damage to 14.72 by using a power attack from Blade. And the reason why this works is you get a weakness to normal weapons, 30% on power attack, which hand-to-hand is considered a normal weapon. Now, should you run Blade 100 just so your hand-to-hand damage gets increased? Probably not. The Blade is just better. But if you want to actually use hand-to-hand to have any kind of damage output, you're going to need to get to 100 Blade. It's like the only consistent, reliable way to improve its damage. But even when doing this, the damage is quite bad. Then for like power attacks, the power attacks are doing the same as a sword normal attack. So hand-to-hand is just terrible. It doesn't do anything good. It doesn't do anything useful. There are some videos that have hand-to-hand builds that are definitely on adept difficulty where they make it look good, but its damage is so low that it's insane. Like a basic, like let me just show you the difference here. Like if I just attack this enemy, 29.88 damage on that hit. If we switch to Umbra, it should be even higher. All right, so here's Umbra. Umbra is hitting for 33 each hit that's unblocked, right? And then if we do power attack, here, let's get some stamina. Need to wait for it to regen. Power attack, and then we hit. We're hitting for 42.20 or 0.8 or whatever, right? And if we switch to hand-to-hand, basic attack hits for 14. It does attack faster. Then the power attack, it's for 34, which is really bad. And then if we ramp it, oh, it's dead. All right, so if we ramp it, it was doing like 40. So the damage is worse than basic attacks. The power attack damage is worse than basic attacks on most swords. And it cannot be enchanted. There's no way to scale it outside of Blade 50/Blade 100. There's also that weakness to normal weapons, 20% scroll that's pretty hard and inconsistent to get. So those would be the only two ways of scaling the damage. And also the other disadvantage of hand-to-hand is that if you have a shield out, you get the enchantment, which is something, but you don't get the armor. So similar to the two-handed problem, the hand-to-hand problem is basically the same. Now, if we block with hand-to-hand, we do reduce damage. It's not by as much as other things, but at least it does something and it recoils attackers. So that you can do your low damage attacks after punching. It's just too low damage output. You can beat the game with it. It's technically possible, but it's going to take forever to kill things. And you're literally better off just running past them and not even bothering. So what should hand-to-hand do if we were to fix it? Like what does it need? Or if someone were to mod a fix? Well, the first thing is it needs damage scaling. It desperately needs a huge damage increase. The damage of like 10 to 11.5 damage at max rank is abysmal. It's lower than literally every weapon in the game. It needs some kind of way to scale damage. Now, Skyrim had an interesting system where it took your gauntlets, and I think it divided it by 2 and added that to damage, so at least you could deal something. Now, obviously, there was no way of like doing enchantments on the gauntlets for damage or anything like that. So if you wanted to get like bonus damage in, the only real way would be through like external sources like magic or, you know, poison through a different weapon because you can't poison your hands. So it needs a flat damage increase for sure. Like the damage is so low on master mode especially, you can barely even kill things, and if the enemy has a self-heal, good luck. You're just gonna not kill things and it's gonna suck. So it needs to go from like 11.5 damage to like 30. Like 30 is a decent amount. Now this is assuming 100 hand-to-hand. Now if they want to achieve that by adding gauntlet damage, so like let's actually look at my gauntlets to see how much damage we would get. If we did 100% of gauntlet damage, it wouldn't even really be that much, honestly. So we're looking at 10 more points of damage here. This would be something. This would give us basically double damage. This would incentivize running armor with hand-to-hand. It would give you something. Now, I also think hand-to-hand needs additional effects if it's going to be useful. So what effects does it have? So your attacks deal additional fatigue damage. Now, from what I've seen, you can knock people over with the fatigue damage, but it does take forever. And spell effects can do this more efficiently, so maybe this needs increased. Power attacks deal more damage, recoil armed opponents when blocking. Power attacks have a chance to disarm, and then your attacks hit creatures immune to physical damage, and then your attacks deal more fatigue damage, your attacks deal even more fatigue damage. So the main thing hand-to-hand is trying to do is act as crowd control, at least based on the balancing. The expert and master level, all they do is just scale the fatigue damage. Now, it would be nice if it did something more, because this is not that useful of an effect, considering how cheap fatigue damage is as a spell. So it's basically like grabbing one of the lowest hanging fruit spells, and it's like, here, you have damage fatigue on your weapon now. And it's like, that's not very useful. That's like, it could be much better. If it was like absorb fatigue, at least that would be something. If it did like... Because like damage and drain fatigue are worse than absorb, because absorb's a bigger effect, right? They're cheaper if you're casting them, but if you had to get a free effect, you'd want absorb. It'd be nice if it had like some kind of vampiric aspect to it. Maybe as you're punching things, you like siphon resources off of them. Now it doesn't have to be logical. In my opinion, I think it should just be interesting and different, so then there's like a reason to do it. It would be really cool if Master, like if Journeyman, you absorb fatigue per hit, like a little bit, like whatever damage you deal. Expert, you absorb health, and then Master, you absorb magicka. That would be interesting. That would give you a reason to use this, because then for like Atronach builds, you can get magicka. You can siphon magicka in general and then cast spells. So then you can kind of use hand-to-hand. Like that would actually give it a use case if you want to keep its damage bad. But I would give it these absorb effects on Journeyman, Expert, and Master. And then Apprentice level, I'd make it so you get your armor rating as extra damage. So that way you have at least decent damage. That would make hand-to-hand more interesting and make it more balanced. You could get rid of the absorb magicka for some other effect. Maybe it does like paralyze or something. Maybe for Master level, your basic attacks have like a 10% chance to paralyze or something stupid. I don't know, for like 1 second. Literally anything would be better than what it has now. Adding random chance to paralyze on Expert would be interesting in addition to what it does. Adding some big effect on Master. Like this Master effect is just so sad. It does nothing. You deal more fatigue damage, who cares? It's not even, like by the time you get to 100 hand-to-hand, you're in like the end game. Unless you're doing some kind of like degen, you know, drain hand-to-hand trainer or whatever. In which case it doesn't even matter. It's still bad, right? Like the Expert or the Master level for block makes your shield bash deal pretty big damage, and also makes blocking cost like nothing. So like it's unlocking like a big effect, right? And then for heavy armor, your armor weighs nothing, which is also a huge effect. And then for Blade, you get weakness to normal weapons, which ramps weakness to normal weapons from Blade. Gives hand-to-hand almost like a 50% damage increase. Now obviously it's 30, but it went from hitting 11.5 to like 14 something, so it's a pretty big jump in damage. So just by having Expert and Blade, you make all physical weapons, including Marksman, better if you switch to like a bow after doing a power attack, which I don't recommend doing, but you could do it. So it needs some serious work. It needs base damage increase. The other thing too they could do is like make it so it's like 15 base damage at high level, and then give gauntlets. Apprentice, your gauntlets deal bonus damage. At least just that would make it at least more usable and less painful. I'm not even suggesting they do things like incorporating magic or enchantments into it, which it is missing, but if they did something interesting with like absorb, I think that could be cool, so that it has this like vampiric aspect. And then I think blunt should be changed so that instead of shield you get damage reflect. It'd be way more interesting, like 15% damage reflect, 30% damage reflect. Now we're talking that it's actually, you know, reducing damage and mirroring damage, so it actually does something useful. But yeah, that's pretty much it for this one. I just wanted to rant about hand-to-hand and how bad it is, and how truly low damage it does compared to other options. And it's just really bad. Like, radio cancel can be used at the tail end, but that's really it. And outside of that, it's just really low damage with very few ways to boost it. So yeah, definitely like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.